Hey everybody, Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, bringing you a bonus review episode this week. On this week's bonus episode, I'm going to be reviewing Marvel Studios' new movie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, as well as Amazon Prime's new show, Jury Duty, which I highly recommend. If you're new to the show, welcome. We host a weekly podcast called The Genre of Your Life every Friday, show all about movies, TV, and why we love entertainment. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to review, rate, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. It helps show it tremendously. And as always, thank you so much for your support. So, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has finally hit theaters. It's the new entry in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And you know what? For some context, I am a big fan of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. It's one of my probably maybe top 5 MCU movies. For some context, I went to an early screening of this movie back in 2014 in IMAX with some of my best friends. We were in high school, and this movie was kind of like very different for Marvel because they already had the Avengers, they had Iron Man, they had Captain America, Thor. This was like post Avengers, post Captain America Winter Soldier, and then this new movie called Guardians of the Galaxy coming out, and no one knew what the hell this was. And I remember being in theaters with the trailers going on. I'm like, what is this? And I knew who Chris Pratt was from, Parks and Rec and Moneyball and Zero Dark 30, but I was like, he's going to be a superhero? Interesting. And I knew that they had a talking raccoon and a talking tree, and I was like, what is this? And a lot of my friends were like, this is going to be weird, and I don't know what to expect because these weren't like household names. They weren't like Iron Man or Thor or Spider-Man. It was like, this is kind of weird, and I was very skeptical at first because I was like, I don't know if this is going to work or not. And the director, James Gunn, I was like, oh, he's done some things I've seen before that I'm not the biggest fan of, me personally speaking. But, oh, yeah, he wrote Scooby-Doo, that's right, or Scooby-Doo 2, and some other movies, some really low-budget independent films. So I'm like, all right, well, we'll see what happens. And I remember going to an IMAX screening, I want to say a month or two before the movie came out with some friends, and the line for this thing was huge. It was because it was an IMAX in downtown Chicago, Navy Pier IMAX, which is unfortunately now closed. And we were all kind of like, all right, we're kind of skeptical, but we're optimistic. And I remember I was like, oh, what's this gonna be like? And we all sat down. This again, a huge IMAX theater. We're kind of like, what's this gonna be? Who knows? There was no reviews for this movie yet. We were one of the first audiences seeing this movie, and movie starts. I was like, okay. The movie literally won me over in the first 10 minutes when you see Chris Pratt as Star Lord, playing his little Walkman to "Come Get Your Love" by Redbone, and I think it's Redbone. And it was just like, oh, this is very different. This isn't Avengers. This isn't Captain America. This isn't Thor. This isn't Iron Man. And I was like, okay, I like this. It was Redbone. And it's very refreshing to see something new. Again, at that time, like, okay, this is not the typical superhero movie. I mean, in ways it was, but the first 10 minutes when you see him dancing to "Come and Get Your Love" by Redbone, I was like, okay, I'm into this. And then you watch more of it, you're like, wow, that's Vin Diesel voicing a talking 12 foot tree. That's Bradley Cooper, who I'm a huge fan of, one of my favorite actors, if you ask me. Also this kind of like, like this like weird and very angry raccoon who thinks he's better than everyone else. I was like, this is so weird, but I'm loving it. And the movie ends, and my friends and I were like, this was hilarious. It was so funny. It had so much heart. Had a great soundtrack. I knew who Batista was prior as a wrestler. I didn't know him as an actor, but he won me over. I think Zoe Saldana is a great actress. I mean, she's like the franchise queen with Avatar, Marvel, and Star Trek. She knows how to like pick her movies very wisely. So it won us over, but we couldn't talk about it because it was like, hey, listen, guys, the movie's gonna come out in another month or two. Don't say anything about it. But when you're young kids, you're kind of like, I can't wait to tell everyone about this movie. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to Twitter. This movie's great. And I remember talking to people like, you got to see this movie. You got to see this movie. I was trying not to spoil anything for them, but I was like, got to see this movie. Told my parents, it had a great soundtrack. You got to see this movie. It's amazing. And I felt bad if I ever hyped it for some people. I felt bad because I really did like this movie a lot. It was fun seeing it before like the hype of that movie came out. But I was just so in awe of this movie. I was like, wow, this was so different, but it was so funny. It was so charming. It was a different kind of Marvel movie. And I was like, wow, this works so many ways. And I remember people talking to me like, that's the one with the talking tree and the talking raccoon. And the guy from Parks and Rec. And I said, yeah, but wait, just give it a chance. Give it a chance. You're going to like this movie a lot. And I'm glad that people I told before it came out. They came out and they saw the movie came out eventually. They're like, "This was great." And I remember talking with my parents. They're like, "Oh, this was so much fun. This was so funny. This was so charming. It's so much heart. Had a great soundtrack." And I was like, "Okay, people that I kind of surround myself with love this movie too," which made me very happy because it was kind of fun knowing like what this movie was before it came out to the public audience, a month or two later. So I have a very special place in my heart for that movie just because of being part of that experience. And again, I just still in my top five, maybe top 10 MCU movies of all time. But Volume 2, Volume 2 has its moments. I remember when it first came out, I remember liking it a lot, but it didn't sit well with me for some reason. And I remember I watched it like again maybe months after it came out in 2017, and I was like, yeah, this wasn't holding up as well as I thought. And I saw it again maybe a year later. We watched some like Marvel marathon with some friends, and I was like, yeah, this doesn't really hold up as well. I like all the actors. I love Kurt Russell as an actor. He's one of my favorite actors too. Good casting as Chris Pratt, Star Lord's dad. But to me, it just felt like it was too jokey. Like every scene was a joke, and the first one had a lot of jokes, but they were able to manage both the jokes and heart and charm very more effectively, if you ask me. So I was like, okay, soundtrack wasn't as good. It was still catchy, like the song "The Chain" from Fleetwood Mac and Jay and the Americans. So I have a song. Father and Song has the song has called Father and Son is very touching in that movie, but I felt like the quality went down a bit. Also, now everyone knows these characters now. They're not kind of like this, like, oh, like who are the Guardians? Like this was like everyone knew who they were now because it's been 3 years since the first one. So it didn't feel as special. Still has good scenes here and there. Like I said, Kurt Russell's a really good actor, but as a villain, I was like, he was an okay villain. I mean, I feel like they could have done more with him personally, but I watched it again maybe a month or two ago, and I was like, yeah, it's shot really well and it's filmed really well. It's good acting, great acting, but a lot of the jokes don't really hold up as much anymore. And I thought it was just too jokey compared to the first movie. So I was like, all right. And I love what the Russo brothers did with them in Avengers, it's Infinity War and Endgame. I thought they were handled great. These were James Gunn's characters, but the Russos took them over for the last two Avengers movies. And I thought they did really good with them, especially Infinity War when you put them in with Iron Man, Doctor Strange, and Spider Man, and then you put them in with Thor, and then they were managed really well again in Endgame when they brought everyone back. So I was like, okay, they were managed very well in the Avengers movies too. And I was very excited to see this kind of crossover between because they felt so far away because one was these Guardians are cosmic warriors and then the Avengers were planet Earth and elsewhere yeah superheroes around the Earth and places like that. So I was like, okay, this is cool. They crossed over really well. They were handled greatly by these great filmmakers, these great writers from Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Thor: Love and Thunder. I like Taika Waititi a lot, but his Thor movies to me don't really work personally for me. So I thought their intro to Thor: Love and Thunder was hilarious. How they were kind of like fighting with Thor, and like some of the jokes were handled pretty well with from Taika and that group. So I like them being utilized a lot outside of the Guardians movies as well. So it worked for sure. So Guardians 3, I was like, okay, this is James Gunn's last movie. And also, again, I'm a big James Gunn fan, but I did not like his Suicide Squad personally. I thought it was too weird for me. Great action, again, great action, great, good acting as well, but it was kind of too weird for me. And as you probably heard in the episodes of the podcast, I'm a big defender and a big appreciator of David Ayer's Suicide Squad in 2016. I know that movie. People despise that movie. I know that people think the James Gunn one is superior to it, and I can't argue with them on certain levels. But preference-wise, I still prefer David Ayer's 2016 version. I know, hot take, but I really do like the movie a lot more, and I do think that David Ayer, who I'm a big fan of, the filmmaker as well, was robbed of his cut, and he's been very vocal about it in multiple different platforms, interviews, that the studio took his movie after Deadpool came out and after the critical failure of Batman v Superman 2016. Warner Brothers went, oh, we want this movie to be more like Guardians and Deadpool, and that wasn't what the Suicide Squad was and David Ayer's version of originally. So Warner Brothers hired this trailer editing team to come in and reshoot a bunch of stuff and edit a lot of more stuff that wasn't his original vision. A lot more humor, a lot more like needle drops, a lot more soundtrack songs, and like I said, David Ayer was been very vocal saying that wasn't my cut. The movie was taken away from me. Again, it's a studio's movie. They can do whatever the hell they want, but this was 2016's the era of like studios not trusting their filmmakers, and this kind of showed that David Ayer was not kind of given his fair chance. But anyway, off the off the point, but I do think again I was not the biggest fan of Suicide Squad, James Gunn's version, and I thought Peacemaker was fun for what it was. It got good violence, got like good adult humor, which I thought was really funny, but still didn't love it. Liked it, but didn't love it. Same with Suicide Squad, his version. Didn't love it. I thought it was okay. Like had his moments, but I didn't really love it. So Guardians 3, I was kind of like, I'm a James Gunn fan. He's coming back to end his trilogy before he's no, as you know, he's the head of he's the co-chairman, he's the CEO of DC movies now, Warner Brothers. So he's now moving on from Marvel. This was his last hurrah. I heard going in is very emotional. This movie's very emotional. It's very sad. It's very cathartic in times. And I'll tell you what, I really, really, really dug Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think it's a huge improvement over the first, over the second. Not as good as the first, but very close there with me. Cause I think the action is fantastic. I think the writing is really great. The soundtrack is awesome, way better than Volume 2, if you ask me. It works on so many levels. I think this is post Avengers. This is post the last few movies that they were in, and it's very fun to see them back, kind of being the Guardians again, solo, together as a team. And I had a really fun time with it, but I did have flaws with it. And to get him out of the way first, the actor, I'm forgetting his name, and he was in Peacemakers and other things too. He's a phenomenal actor, great performer. I think he was doing great as the villain. However, I think the villain of the movie itself was kind of underwhelming and kind of weak personally. The spoilers. Guardians 3 kind of takes place again post Avengers. They're kind of now like this. They're together, but Gamora, as we all know, spoilers for Avengers: Infinity War, guys. It's been 5 years. Gamora is now the Gamora that they knew is gone. She was killed by Thanos to get one of the Infinity Stones. So the Gamora that they know is gone. She's the Gamora that's now in current time is she's out of the picture. She doesn't know who they are. She has no connection to them whatsoever. She's kind of like a new kind of like a brainwashed version of this of Gamora. So they're all kind of like they're the Guardians, but they're not like the same team that they were pre Avengers Infinity War, the first two Guardians. So they're kind of broken in a way. But Rocket is so the story is about trying to save their friend Rocket the raccoon, who's my favorite character of the Guardians, if you're asking me. And so the villain has a tie. The villain has a tie. And it's no spoilers, right? Trying to not spoil this movie as much as I can. The villain has a tie into Rocket's backstory, and so they have to go, save Rocket. And I thought that was a very great setup. Just the villain to me, the villain works for them because the villain is a more kind of like it's a more Guardian centered villain, and that works for sure. But to me, I think I've seen better villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and also in other Marvel movies, where I was like, okay, I understand like the threat, but I didn't find the villain threatening or menacing as much. And a lot of people I'm hearing from, like whether on Rotten Tomatoes or other podcasts, saying, no, the villain's great, he works great, like he's menacing. I'm like, no, the performance is great. The performance is very great. Actor's doing a phenomenal job. I just feel like the villain itself was not like, okay, I didn't feel the threat from him whatsoever. I mean, again, I'm not part of the Guardians, but maybe that was kind of the point of like it was more of a threat to them and to Rocket. So I was like, it didn't really work for me personally. Again, still great performance, great actor, but I wish they could have maybe done more with the actor, or had done more with the villain, or had a villain that's had like more of a threat, because I don't really feel the threat personally when I was watching this movie. And also, I do think Will Poulter, who plays Adam Warlock, he was kind of teased in End of Guardians Volume 2, the post-credit scene, like, oh, he's the gold people, like, oh, he's coming, Adam's coming, whatever. And honestly, great actor. And he was like, oh yeah, he went through so much training and so much like muscle work he had to get fit for this role. And honestly, he's kind of barely in it. I mean, he's in it to a degree, but it kind of feels pointless that he's in this movie. I was like, when the movie's kind of done, I was like, what was his part of it? Like, what was his point to be in this movie? It just felt like they kind of crowbarred him in because they mentioned him in Volume 2, and this was like the end of the trilogy, whatever. So I was like, I understand why you had to have him in, but it didn't really make sense for him to be there because he didn't really do much. And I do think he's one of those characters that kind of got dumbed down, like kind of like Korg, I think Korg in the Thor movies. I just like, yeah, he's one of the characters that was there, but you kind of dumped him down a lot, and it's like it wasn't effective enough. So Again, great actor. I mean, if they do more with him, cool. I'm really open to see more of him as a character. But overall, I was like, yeah, this was kind of pointless for him to be in here when the movie ended. I was like, oh, it's kind of silly. But those are my two main kind of issues with it. I was like, those two didn't really work for me. Overall, the movie, I do think it's 2.5 hour movie, and personally for me, the pace went by fast. I'm very big on now like pacing a movie. Like if it drags, like okay, let's get on with it. Like, all right, this part again. All right, let's go. Hey, this thing again. I never felt with this movie, and I felt that in a lot of like I felt that in Ant Man. I felt that in Doctor Strange. I felt that in Shang Chi. A bit of Eternals too. I love No Way Home. I'm more biased, like I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and the pacing of that movie is perfect. But I do think the pacing in this to me worked great. I didn't feel like it dragged a bit. I don't feel like I mean even Wakanda Forever a little bit. I do think it dragged in some parts, but the movie had to be long to kind of like tell the story that they're trying to tell. So I understand their reason for it. But with this movie, I do feel the pacing was great. It was 2.5 hours. I didn't feel it personally. The jokes were good. Jokes were very strong, and they kept me laughing. The action was great. The action was very, very, very crisp and very well choreographed and well directed by James Gunn and his action and stunt team. So I was like, wow, this movie's working so great. 'Cause I was kind of nervous. I'm like, wait, this is the last one. I didn't like Suicide Squad. I didn't really like Peacemaker as much, but I was very surprised that he ended with a bang. And it is emotional. The poor girl next to me was sobbing. Oh, every sad scene that happens, the girl was sobbing, and like I felt bad. She had like, no tissue, so I had like napkins for my popcorn, trying to give her like napkins. Like, hey, this is for you. She goes, thank you so much, and she was very sweet. But like she was very. A lot of people were. I had a lot of sniffles and crying in the theater. I was pretty emotional on some parts too, but it is a very sad, very dark movie. I will warn you if you again. I'm not a fan of animal abuse whatsoever. I don't think anyone's a fan of animal abuse, but if you're very sensitive to that subject, this movie is very tough because I'm like, wow, they're doing some things where I'm like, geez, this is very dark for a not kids movie, but a comic book movie for PG-13, and I was like, wow, they're going there. So I will warn you if you're sensitive to animal abuse, it's very there's some parts where you're like, ooh, yikes. So you've been warned. And there are a lot of emotional moments between the characters and their kind of like relationship, also their backstory. So I was like, wow, this is working very well. There are some scenes where I was like, this is kind of corny, this is kind of silly, but I still laughed. So I still laughed and it still made me laugh. So I'm with it. And again, I think all the performances, whether it's from Dave Bautista, who I think is a really good actor, I do think, I like The Rock and I like John Cena, but I'm always kind of skeptical about like, athletes or, people turned actors. I think I've seen improvement in all three: John Cena, The Rock, and Dave Bautista. But I will say, I think out of all three of them, Dave Bautista has shown me a lot of range recently as an actor, whether it's in Blade Runner 2049 or Knock at the Cabin or not even Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm like, wow, I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot of range of it. Oh, even Dune too, Dune as well. So I was like, wow, like I'm seeing a lot of range from Batista. And I was very impressed with him because he's really funny, and I do think in Volume Two, Drax was a kind of comedic thing for every line. Because in the first one, he had funny moments, but he wasn't intentionally funny. It was kind of like he's kind of oblivious to things because yeah, his character was kind of oblivious and like not too literal. So I'm like, okay, it worked. In Volume Two, I felt like every line was a joke, and this one, there are a lot of jokes in this as well, but there are moments where he shines of like as an actor. You're like, wow, this is why he's a great actor. This is why he's kind of improving as an actor. He has this range now. He's learning, he's growing, he's improving too. So I was like, wow, I'm very impressed with like his timing, but also his acting chops for sure. And again, Zoe Saldana I think is great because again she's playing a different version of Gamora that we haven't seen kind of almost since the first Guardian. So to her, she's playing like this person that has no tie to these characters whatsoever, except for Nebula because she's the sister still. And we saw this version of Gamora in Endgame, so it's for sure a different version of her that we haven't seen in a long time. And again, Winston Donegan is the queen of franchises: Star Trek, Marvel, and Avatar. She brings a lot of emotion, a lot of kind of like she's good at playing rage really well. I think you see a lot of rage in her in Avatar. You see a lot of rage in her in this character and as Gamora, and it works because I think she brings so much to the table where she kind of like steals a lot of her scenes, whether it's with the crew or by herself. So again, phenomenal actress. It works. Karen Gillan, who I thought at first in the first Guardians and first Guardians 2, I was like, okay, she's kind of doing the really brooding kind of like this voice all the time, and I'm like, okay, it's getting a little old, but I'll tell you what, she really won me over both Infinity War and Endgame, where I'm like, wow, she's a big arc in Endgame especially. And I was like, wow, I'm won over. I think she's proven me wrong, and I love being proven wrong in movies and shows and actors and performances. So I was like, wow, she's bringing a lot to it too. Anyone, and this one especially, she definitely is bringing a lot of emotion and a lot of range to this one, and I do think it works very well because she really is a different part of the team because she's kind of like one who's been here since the beginning, who was a villain at first, now was part of the team that was good. And again, it works on so many levels. I was very impressed with Karen Gillan as an actress because she's very like bringing this kind of this like controlled rage because she's never really a happy character, but you kind of see her let loose in this one, which I think is very fun and very rewarding too. Um, Again, Chris Pratt, I love ever since Parks and Rec and Moneyball. I think he's very charming. He's very likable. You see him in interviews. He's just very likable. He's very always jokey, but always kind of like truthful and right from the heart, which I really admire about him as an actor and as a person. And I think this is one of his best performances as Star Lord. I do think that. I really do think that he just brings so much to just like who he was as a character. His backstory, why he's how far he's gotten here. His broken backstory with his mom dying and his dad being evil. He has so much trauma, but like he uses it very well because as a leader, he needs to like stay strong for the Guardians and stay strong for himself as a character. So it just works, and I do think that Chris Pratt's getting better as an actor as well. And like I said, he's some of the funniest lines in this movie, and you can just tell like he really holds his team together, even though he's broken inside because of losing Gamora, his Gamora. So it's like what, he has to really stay strong. He has to be focused. He has to do this because he's determined. And I think every movie gets better and better, and this movie it definitely shows that. And then two, I like hearing that Vin Diesel's back as Groot because he's been Baby Groot, he's been Teenage Groot, but it's not really his voice. Since in the first Guardians, it was Vin Diesel. It was the very the very brooding, like the very dark, deep voice. And in this, it is you can tell it is Vin Diesel again. It's Vin Diesel's voice again. It's like okay, it's him. Like I said, I'm a huge Bradley Cooper fan. I love love him as an actor. Um, I love Rocket, one of my favorite characters of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this is definitely Rocket's movie. Rocket, I would say it's like almost like half Rocket's origin story slash sequel to Guardians 1 and 2. It balances both as a prequel to Rocket, but prequel origin to Rocket and a sequel to the Guardians movies. And this is definitely his movie, and I like that because we knew about him in bits and pieces in Volume 1 and Volume 2, but we really did not know like where he came from and where his backstory is. I mean, we got it briefly, but I do think that how it all comes together, and this is very well done. Again, bravo to James Gunn. I think he mentioned in an interview that the end game was always to like end it with Rocket's story, end it with Rocket's kind of like, hey, like where did he come from? What is his background? What is his trauma? Because we all know like Drax lost his wife and daughter. We knew about Nebula and Gamora because they were daughters of Thanos, who were just abused and just put into war. We knew about Star Lord, who lost his mom and now was evil, and then Groot was kind of just like the Groot, he's just there. But I like that we kind of dove deep into Rocket's backstory, where he came from, and kind of see who he became as a character. And like I said, huge Bradley Cooper fan. I do think Bradley Cooper deserves a lot of recognition for his voice work. I think voice work is a very, very sometimes kind of like underappreciated type of acting, and I think that in all the movies that Bradley Cooper's been as Rocket, I think he just really kind of steals the show. And again, I'm a huge Bradley Cooper fan. I kind of forget that it's Bradley Cooper sometimes voicing Rocket because it's very well done. So, like I said, I enjoy this movie so much. Again, it's great soundtrack. Yeah, I'm a big Beastie Boys fan, so it was cool seeing No Sleep Till Brooklyn on. And I do like that. No spoilers, but this movie has an ending where I wasn't expecting it. I was like, oh, interesting. I like that. It didn't go in the direction that I thought it was gonna go, which I like. I like being kind of like, yeah, you think it's gonna go this way, but actually, no, not really. And I do like that. I like that. It's kind of refreshing because a lot of like the Marvel movies, you're like, oh yeah, like this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this happens, this happens. Like, okay, yeah, surprise, surprise. But in this, it ends like, okay, I like that. It's different. it took a different direction than I thought it was going to go, and it was again refreshing. Um, but also two post credit scenes, I will say. However, they're kind of pointless. If you want to stick with them, go ahead. I'm not gonna say what they are, but compared to other post credit scenes in the Marvel movies, these two were really pointless. And I was like, I could have gone home and got in my car and gone home 10 minutes earlier because I was like, this was kind of pointless. So if you want to stay with them, by all means. But if you ask me, yeah, they're kind of pointless. And also, you know what? I want to also get point out to the CGI. I think Marvel's been getting a lot of crap for a lot of CGI in the past couple of movies and shows, especially She-Hulk. She-Hulk, I mean, the comparison is like it counts like Shrek. Like Shrek, the original Shrek, how about like CGI with the animation was kind of like still becoming what it was that we know today. I do think in Ant-Man is very noticeable. Thor, yeah, I think Spider-Man was pretty good with CGI, but also that's Sony, that's not really Marvel. So with this, I said I thought the CGI and animation looked fantastic. Maybe a few scenes here and there were like, okay, it's noticeable, but I did think the CGI on all the characters, especially Rocket and especially Groot, I think the CGI has been a huge improvement. To be fair, I know that a lot of these visual effects artists and companies are overworked. They're like working 12, 15-hour days, tight deadlines, very strict deadlines from the studios and the producers. So but I want to be on both sides. I think that that's kind of unfair to them because they're working to the bone to get these things done. So I do want to praise that. I think the CGI, this to all the CGI artists and visual effects artists and creators, bravo! I think this is one of your best works because the CGI was a big improvement, and I hope that Marvel and Disney kind of slows down and kind of like focus over quality over quantity because in the first three phases of Marvel, I even think the first phase of Marvel, the CGI looks way better than some of the movies that came out in the past year or two from Marvel. I'm like, it's noticeable, especially in the TV shows. It's very noticeable. So I hope that Marvel kind of shifts more on quality over quantity because they can take more time. They don't have to rush and like stress out their visual effects team and crew to like get things done because let artists be artists. If you can't rush an artist, you can't rush certain people because again, I know you have deadlines, but it shows when you give visual effects artists an hour compared to a month, and it definitely shows. So I do think the CGI in this movie was fantastic. It was a huge improvement over some of the other Marvel stuff. So again, bravo to them. And yeah, and again, it's probably all over the news too. It was kind of fun seeing. This is the first f bomb in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because I think it's because of Disney. You gotta be careful with the brand. I get it, but it was fun that like this was the first f bomb that we heard in the Marvel movie in a Marvel movie in the Disney cinematic Marvel Cinematic Universe. So again, bravo to them as well. It was a lot of fun hearing that. So yeah, guys, I recommend seeing this in IMAX. I saw it in IMAX. James Gunn shot it in not the full IMAX ratio, but the 190 ratio, which is kind of the standard typical IMAX. 143 is kind of like how Christopher Nolan shoots his movies, or how Jordan Peele shot Nope in IMAX. So if you film with IMAX film cameras, you'll see it in 143, the full top to floor, ceiling to floor ratio. But this was from that 190, which is the larger premium format. A lot of movies are being filmed in now, so I would recommend seeing it in IMAX. I know it's a bit pricier. I love seeing movies in IMAX, no matter what it is, whether it's a Marvel movie, Christopher Nolan, Jordan Peele, or whatever. If it's shot in IMAX to a degree, I'm there. I'm seeing it, so I would definitely recommend seeing this in theaters, but also seeing it in IMAX. And with that, I'm gonna give it 8 out of 10. I can't wait to see it again. Because again, I had so much fun with this movie. Again, great soundtrack, a lot of fun, great camera work from James Gunn and his cinematographer. And it was just it was fun. It's why we love Marvel. And I do think that I personally felt this way of like I'm kind of Marvel down, I'm kind of superhero fatigued. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of over this, but it was refreshing to see this movie that wow, I had a great time with. Again, I didn't like Ant-Man. I didn't really care for Doctor Strange. I didn't really care for Thor: Love and Thunder. I didn't care for Eternals, except for maybe post Endgame. I do think maybe Spider-Man: Far From Home, No Way Home, and Wakanda Forever are probably the best Marvel projects in the past 3 to 4 years. So it's definitely worth seeing in theaters. Seeing it in IMAX. If I were you, seeing it in IMAX for sure. And it's a fun summer blockbuster. This is the first summer blockbuster of 2023. Go have fun, enjoy it. It is the last Guardians in this trilogy, probably for a while, if not ever. So check it out. I had a lot of fun with it. It's sad to see James Gunn go as a filmmaker from Marvel, but I think he's gonna be doing great things at DC. So we'll see. Alrighty, on to our next review of the bonus episode, which is Amazon Prime or slash Amazon Freevee. Freevee is kind of like the free version of Amazon Prime, which is it's all on Amazon Prime. Show called Jury Duty. Jury Duty to me, I heard about it through some friends and social media, and then my girlfriend said, "Hey, we should check out the show called Jury Duty." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I heard about it," but I was like, "What is it really?" It's kind of like I heard kind of like a Truman Show kind of thing, and I was like, "Okay, I love Truman Show, probably top 5 movies of all time for me." But I was like, "All right, we'll see how it goes." It was the writers, some of the writers of The Office, and the producers of the show movie called Bad Trip, which is which on Netflix. So I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be one of those prank shows like Punked." But no, there's way more to it. I absolutely love this show. I can't recommend this enough. The premise is in California, you can volunteer to be on a jury, and there was a Craigslist ad of saying, "Hey, we're looking to shoot this documentary about the American jury system in California," and they put out the Craigslist ad, and they had like over 3,000 like people to be on this. You're gonna be filmed on this documentary about being on a jury in an American during a American trial, whatever. So it was like all about that, and it was a fake ad, and they interviewed over like 3,000, maybe 2,000 people, and this one guy got the job, got the gig, and however, everyone around him are all actors. So it's a fake case, it's a fake trial, fake defendant, fake everything, fake victim, fake defendant, literally everything, a fake jury, fake judge, the fake crew basically, bailiff, fake cops. It was like it's literally it is Truman Show basically. Everyone but this one guy named Ronald, and kind of everyday guy lives in California. He interviewed it. He got the gig, and the thing, and again, everyone's actors, and the thing that kind of stands out the most is that also James Marsden, who's been in Enchanted and oh my gosh, Sonic the Hedgehog and a movie called Sex Drive and oh man, everything. He's been so much X-Men, yeah. He's been in so many things. So it was like, wow, he's ended up playing himself. Hairspray. Um, he's been in so much stuff. Westworld. He's been in so many things where he's playing himself. He's kind of playing like a douchier version of himself. But like again, everyone's acting the part except for this one guy named Ronald. And the trial kind of goes. The first few episodes kind of go out of hand. So they're sequestered for 4 to 5 weeks. No phones, nothing, no connection to the outside world. They're put in this hotel and near Universal Studios in LA, and he has no idea. And every episode, something crazier and crazier happens, and people do weird things, and people say weird stuff, and people act out of line, and the trial gets weirder and weirder. It makes no sense, and like he's put on the spot to be like the speaker of the jury, whatever that is. He's put on the spot to like kind of lead the jury, whatever. And the entire time, he has no idea this is fake. And I tell you, I love the Truman Show. This show is hilarious. They have some great comedic writers, kind of writing up the like the premise and what's going to happen in each episode and like behind the scenes. And these actors, a lot of them are all of them are all like, unknown, kind of just like actors who are just trying to make a living in LA. And wow, like everyone does a great job playing like the normal everyday person, and it just works. It works a lot, and like I said, every episode gets crazier and crazier and crazier. And wow, I think it's hilarious. It's 8 episodes, half hour episodes tops. They're really quick. I said two of the main kind of writers were staff head writers on The Office. And it's so funny because all these actors are kind of just they're kind of like a long improv session for them because all of them are reacting off of him, kind of setting up the thing, and they're gonna react off of this guy Ronald, who's the only non-actor there, and it's so funny. It's so funny because it's really absurd. You're like, how is he not catching on? This is kind of weird. How is this real? And he just goes with it every episode. He goes, "Oh, yeah, it is what it is. This thing happens. This person did what? This person said this kind of thing," and it works. And it's crazier and crazier. But man, this was a fun show. It was a fun show because it wasn't punked. It wasn't like Jackass. It wasn't like the show Bad. It was like the Bad Trip movie, or was it Bad Grandpa as well? Or yeah, Bad Grandpa, whatever it is. And it just works. It's really funny. And one thing that really works too is that the non actor, the main guy Ronald, he's so likable and he's so nice. He's an everyday man. He just it's a very sweet, very humble, very nice. Like they're there for a good time, not a long time. Just wants to hang out with all the people in his jury. Wants to hang out with all like the people he's around in the hotel. He's so sweet. He's very positive. Very like does a lot of things phase him. I mean, he's shocked by a lot of things for sure. He's like, oh, he's shocked and he's reacting to a lot of stuff that's like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? But he's so nice. He's so like polite to everyone. He's very nice. He's like again a really just a good dude, and it's just fun seeing this really nice good dude just kind of put through some stuff every week. And I was very impressed with it. It's very fun. Like I said, it's on Amazon Prime. Give it a watch if you want something like really lighthearted and fun and nothing too serious, nothing kind of too like nothing too kind of just like out of this out of pocket, whatever. It's such a fun show, so I really recommend it. I'm having my parents watch it. I asked some to my friends, I who I saw last week. They're watching it now. They're loving it. So it's just fun seeing people's reaction. Like, oh my gosh, give me that episode. This happens. Again, super quick episodes, 8 episode series. It's fun. It's so much fun, and I hope that like I'm not gonna probably say another season of the show, but I hope more shows can like be this fun because after a while, I like seeing like heavy shows and like dramatic shows, but it's just fun to laugh in once in a while with kind of like people's reactions, kind of just like I don't know, just like not kind of like not like ridiculousness or American funniest videos. It's just fun seeing this. It was a very good concept, very well executed. I was very impressed with things. Everyone did not break character. Everyone kind of stuck there, and I was very impressed with everyone just kind of just like going along with this gag. So worth a watch. It's called Jury Duty. It's on Amazon Prime, Amazon Freevee, which is on Amazon Prime. To get watch it with ads, unfortunately, but give it a watch. Don't worry about the ads. Ads are just there, but it's very funny. Um, Check it out. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be my quick bonus episode this week. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you are big Guardians of the Galaxy fans like I am, especially Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 3. And you support the movies. The movies. This is going to be another summer of the blockbusters are back. I think last year we have Top Gun Maverick was a big hit. Nope, and a lot of the Marvel movies came back, and stuff like Elvis did really well. Bullet Train, Minions, a lot of animation. Jurassic Park was last year too. Jurassic World, sorry, was last year as well. So go to the movies this summer. I think we got a lot coming up. I think our next episode of the Genre of Your Life is going to be about our most anticipated movies of 2023 summer edition actually, and we got stuff like The Flash and Mission Impossible and Oppenheimer and Barbie coming out. Fast and Furious. I know I'm a huge Fast and Furious fan, so I'm pumped for that movie regardless. So yeah, go to the movies summer, have fun. I know like a lot of movies too do like $5 Tuesdays. Or discounted tickets, or go to a matinee. I would go to IMAX. Again, I said it earlier a few minutes ago. If a movie's filmed in IMAX, I'm gonna be there. Say less. So go to the movies. It's fun. It's fun. I can't wait to see a lot of things this summer. I got my little watch list ready to watch a lot of things this summer. Whether it's Flash or Fast and Furious, or Oppenheimer and Barbie. It's gonna be a good summer of movies. So I hope you have a great summer 23 movie season as well. As always, guys, if you want to find the show on social media, you can find us at Midway Avenue Productions on Instagram and TikTok. I've been trying to grow the TikTok a lot more with like out of theater reaction and quick video reviews, trying to market the show. And website that we haven't really kind of been working on as much, but it's there. It's at www.midwayavenueproductions.com. As always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast platform of choice. And as mentioned, if you can review, follow, rate the show, it helps us out tremendously. We've been getting we're trying to grow the show a lot more this summer is kind of the goal, but your support means the world to us, whether you are following us, liking us, leave a review, leave a rating. Again, good or bad, we'll take it. It helps us out, helps the show out tremendously. And as always, guys, thank you so much for your support. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, guys.